There's the kind of like I guess the European story, France, Germany. Where else have you been? Where have you?
So I've been going to Europe on a motorbike like virtually forever. So apart from obviously 2 years since my accident. But prior to that, in the late 1990s, so I did a bit of what was called then. It was called overlanding. So as
opposed to what?
As opposed to going somewhere hot and dusty. But that's what it was called. Like these days, it's about adventure riding or an adventure holiday. But it used to be called overlanding, so it was like blokes in Land Rovers and stuff. So anyway, I did a number of trips, and they've all kind of blurred into one. So I went to Morocco 1 year just to try and test myself out, because I wanted to go to an environment that didn't operate in the same way that Europe does, and that's what I wanted to experience, and Morocco was certainly a taste of that. And then once I did that, I felt, well, I could go further afield, and being a kind of almost like a stereotypical Englishman who loves T.E. Lawrence, and I love T.E. Lawrence, Seven Pillars of Wisdom. And actually every Christmas I watch the full film Lawrence of Arabia while he's eating hummus.
Eating hummus, that's
eating
important.
hummus, yeah, it's very, very important.
Yeah, they're very good at slow bits.
I used to watch it cross-legged, but I can't do it anymore. Anyway, so big T. Lawrence fan.
Yeah.
So I thought I really want to go to the Middle East. So I travelled through Europe and Turkey, into Syria, which at the time was like a very unknown place. It's kind of a closed, because the Assads were in power, and it was kind of, what is Syria about? I didn't really know anything about it. No internet, so it was Lonely Planet Guide. The Lonely Planet Guide had like 3 pages on Syria. So I went through Syria. One trip, I came through Syria, went into Lebanon, visited Beirut, and then went into Jordan. Obviously, I really wanted to see Wadi Rum and Petra. And then on a subsequent journey, kind of did a similar sort of thing, and then crossed the Sea of Aqaba. So I got a ferry over to Egypt, and then crossed the Sinai, and went to Cairo and Luxor. And,
can you put it into words what it was like being in this kind of country? This landscape?
The landscape is desert, but it's not desert like an African desert. What's that film with? What's that film? That film where Ralph Fiennes leaves his bird in a cave. No, she drops dead, and she English Patient.
I've never seen it. Didn't know anyone left anyone in a cave.
Yeah, so he leaves Christian Scott Thomas in a cave.
Anyway, that one.
Right, yeah. So that one's all African desert.
Yeah.
So the Middle Eastern desert is very kind of scrubby and bouldery.
Oh, okay.
But if you think about it being the to use that dreadful stereotypical phrase, it's the cradle of human civilization and all the main monotheistic religions. There is so much to see. It is incredible, and obviously you've got all the Crusades and all those other bits, which you don't want to mention, because you kind of.
Bad form will come in.
But it's, so originally I went because I felt it would operate completely differently. It was a very mysterious place. It seemed to me very, very mysterious. There was a bit of the T.E. Lawrence connection as well. And if you've ever read Seven Pillars of Wisdom, on one part it's a war story. But the main part of it, it's about philosophy, it's about culture, and it's about observing the world around you and the people around you. And it's a fabulous, fabulous book. And I wonder if I can try and experience, some of that by going to, similar places. So that was kind of the motivation.
Did you try and write about it at the time to try and kind of capture it as you went?
I wrote a diary. Yeah, I wrote a diary.
Did you get what you wanted to from that when you read it back? Is it?
Not from the diary, but from what I remember.
Okay.
And they obviously, travel broadens the mind and all that kind of stuff. So I can't say how it's broadened my mind or if it has, but it's those kind of experiences that I had. I would like to think they altered or have now created whatever my world view is and the way that I am.
I'm interested in this because a friend of mine went to Jerusalem, but she was on her own and she had no one to talk about it with. So it's a completely different experience when you experience something without being able to discuss it. And much more intense and quite lonely. But
I think it is. I mean, that's why I always prefer travelling on my own, because actually it forces you to get out there, and it forces you to to deal with you know, whoever it is, you know, whatever cultural people that live there. You know, because I think that, you know, the kind of thing that I've never really been into is, you know, you travel with a group of people, you stay with that group of people, and you eat with that group of people in the hotel that you're staying with that group of people. I just like getting to a place, dumping all my stuff, and then going out and finding out what's going on and getting a measure in the tempo of the place.
So did you ever feel lonely?
Never.
And why do you think that is?
I don't like people. No, I love people. No, because the places are so... Because when you go to a place that doesn't operate in the same way as London or here or wherever, you either accept that and you'll probably just stay in your hotel room, or you'll engage with it. And as soon as you engage with it, that's when you realise how fabulous human beings are, and how wonderful and warm and compassionate I actually found, you know, those cultures in Syria, Jordan and Lebanon. Really welcoming, really open.
Why do you think that
really
is?
Friend. I've got no idea. You know, you could say religion, culture. You could say maybe they don't really see that many people on motorbikes passing through. Maybe it's because
do they have anything in common as cultures? Is there any sort of thread? Are they some more low population density or?
There's it's low population, low GDP. It's a hard life. You know, to give you an example, I would pretty much every day I would be invited into somebody's home that I had met.
As a complete stranger.
As a complete stranger, and a couple of times I would do. I was a little bit wary at first, but you know, typically, I met this one guy riding a motorbike, literally in the middle of nowhere. He was on a tiny little motorbike, and he waved me over and we had a conversation, and he said, come to my home. So I followed him to his home, which was about another 30 miles down some kind of gravel track, and it was literally a cinder block house in the middle of nowhere, you know, made out of breeze blocks, 2 rooms in it. Nothing inside the first room. There was like a TV that was run off a generator and a few carpets, and then there was another room, and he had 3 kids and he was married, and we all sat down and had fabulous food. And then he wouldn't accept anything and then waved me on, and that kind of thing happened all the time. And these are people that don't have anything, you know, literally didn't have anything. They invited me into his home just so we could share a few stories.
So why are we not like this in the Western world?
I don't know, maybe we've got too much. Maybe we've got too much.
Yeah, so how would that feed into not being good at sharing it?
Because isn't there there's a risk profile thing, isn't there, that the more that people have, the less that they will risk to lose it as opposed to gaining it. So if you think you've got nothing, your natural proclivity is to try and reach out and create opportunities to get something richer in your life, whether that's money or relationships or whatever. When you think you already have those things, your proclivity is about reducing the risk of losing them. So you put your arms around them.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe that's got something to do with it.
I wonder at what point that happens, when you have more than you need.
The balancing point. I don't know. I mean, what do they say? It's there's that thing, isn't there, about how much do you need to make you happy? And it's actually not very much financially, but it's about the friends, and it's about partnerships, and it's about everything else, isn't it? You know, so maybe it's something to do with that. Maybe it's something to do with, you know, with the religion. Maybe it's something to do with the fact that, you know, you're living with your family of 4 kids and your wife in a cinder block house 30 miles from anywhere. You want to speak to people. You want to reach out to them, don't you?
But that's to me, that's the most interesting thing, more than the landscapes actually, was just like geographical. It's a completely, all human beings are just completely different. It's not surprising that different cultures produce different types of people, but so dramatically different. It's so open.
And you're right, originally it was about landscapes and kind of, you know, that was the reason to go, because actually it's a difficult place to go to. So you need like a compelling reason that you can understand yourself.
Difficult in what sense?
Well, at the time, you know, so there's no internet.
Right.
You have to send your passport off to get visas. It's very difficult to cross the borders. There's a load of paperwork. You have to take out Syrian motorcycle insurance. There's a whole load of stuff that it's not just like going to Bournemouth.
Okay, sure.
You know, and it took me in the pre-internet days, it'd take me 18 months to arrange all of that. You know, so there's a lot of stuff that you have to do to make it go as easy as possible.
Okay.
So I think you need a compelling reason in your own head to do that, first of all. But then, you know, as you were saying, the thing that actually happened was it was the people, you know, the way that they lived and the things I experienced. I mean, the landscape is still amazing, but it was the people and it was the things that I saw. I mean, there's all of those, you know, kind of situations where I was invited into somebody's home. Absolutely amazing and brilliant. There's some scary things, really scary things that happened, which perhaps I shouldn't have been scared of, but I was. So I was crossing from the Turkish to the Syrian border, and this is in Kurdish territory, so it's a bit risky anyway. And I wasn't quite used to crossing borders at the time. This Turkish guy was nosing around my bike. You know, he wanted some bakshish. You know, he wanted a bribe. And I was like, no, I'm not giving you a bribe. So he took me into his office, which was like something out of Midnight Express. It was literally a concrete room, and with a desk, which he sat behind, with a high window. And he said, you sit there. Then he walked out and locked the door behind me. So I'm locked in this room, and I pulled myself up out of the windows, and I could see him walking around the bike. So you can imagine what's going through my mind. And then he comes back like about 45 minutes later, so I just handed him $40, so that was quite scary. And then one time I was camping in Syria at a place called Ras Al Bazit, which is near the Mediterranean coast, really beautiful place. And on my outward trip, I'd camped there and met some Germans who were also camping, so it was like a place that I sort of knew. Anyway, so I went back. Nobody there, it was all shut up, but I put my tent up. And then I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I could hear this sound of a motor running. And I was facing the sea, and a searchlight went across the front of the tent. And I could hear, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? And I could hear some shouting. I thought, oh my God, you know, there's all sorts of stuff going through my mind. So I felt like, God, if something happens here, you know, I'm in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, so I got out of the tent. How stupid am I? You know, there's a searchlight, and it was a boat that was on the sea, with a searchlight kind of sweeping the woods where my tent was. So how stupid am I? I'm like hid behind a tree in my underpants and a vest. So I go, it's only me. And this voice on the loud hailer, so they cut the engine.
30 seconds away, I've just forgotten something really fast.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. So, where was I? Yeah, so they cut the engine,
from the boat, yeah.
And there's a guy on a loud hailer saying, Mr. Philippe, are you okay? Are you okay?
What?
We wanted to check.
What?
And so I edge out of the tree.
With your hands up?
With my hands up, and then went like that. Anyway, no, I went like that. Said, yes, no, I'm okay, I'm just in. And I'm like, is it okay to camp here? Yes, it's okay. We saw you at the last checkpoint and you didn't arrive at the next checkpoint. And we wanted to make sure you were okay.
They're sending a boat out?
And they sent a boat out. So I go back to bed, somehow get to sleep, and I get to the Syrian border, which is about 100 miles away, and this guy says to me, Mr. Philippe, did you sleep okay last night? And I'm like, what?
That's amazing.
And another nice story, another really nice story, you know, a very people story. I was in Damascus. Damascus is the most amazing, beautiful, wonderful city, or it was. Loved it. Favourite city in the world. I was trying to get out of Damascus, and I was trying to get to the Crac de Chevalier, which is this enormous Crusader castle built on a hill somewhere, and then head south to Jordan. Anyway, I came across like the world's most convoluted, complicated, horrendous roundabout in the world. Cars, donkeys, everything everywhere. So I stopped at the side of the road, and I've only got a paper map. You know, it's literally, there's no GPS or anything. So I'm looking at this paper map thinking, what on earth? Where am I going here? And it was like 100 degrees. And then there was a policeman stood in the middle of the roundabout directing the traffic, and he saw me, and he pointed at me, and I just did the universal gesture of I don't know what I'm doing here. And he started blowing his whistle. He put his hand out and he stopped all of the traffic coming onto the roundabout. There's no lie. stopped all of the traffic and then beckoned me forward. And he got down off his little box and he looked at the map and he said, "Are you trying to go here?" I said, yeah. And then he beckoned a taxi driver. A battered old yellow taxi, beckoned a taxi driver over to me, pointed at the map, and he said, "You follow him."
You follow him because he's going to go there now, because I'm sort of...
Well, I think the taxi driver wasn't going there, but
No,
he was
exactly,
now going.
yeah, he was, yeah.
Exactly. So the taxi driver took me out of the city, and he wouldn't accept anything. You know, so as a... You can't even begin to fathom.
So if you'd seen that on a television programme, you'd say, that's set up.
Yeah,
There's no way
it
that
is set up.
happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's something that amazing. How can you contain it? Because
That's why I get excited when I'm telling you.
So when people have experiences like that, what do they do with them? Because they can't just keep them to themselves, can they? Because it's too
Yeah, but
big.
it's still there though, and you know, in some funny way, it's like, you know, there are people that are really distrustful or angry or hate other people until proven otherwise. I would just prefer to take the other way. I think most people are genuinely good and really want to help until proven otherwise, and maybe that's part of the. You know, I mean, you've got to have a radar about these things, but I mean, talk about restoring your faith in humanity and stuff. You know, just that simple little thing.
It's huge. It's really, really huge.
It's incredible. Just incredible. I had a million other things happen.
Like that.
Yeah, you know, and some of them not involving local people. I mean, when I went over to Egypt, the ferry I was getting from Aqaba, which is in Jordan, because I was taking my motorbike, you had to get a slow ferry and it took 8 hours to go across, and there was a hydrofoil. And this was in the morning, so I'm waiting for my boat, and then this girl walks up to me and said, "Oh, which boat are you going? What are you doing? Where are you going?" You know, she had a rucksack on, so she was obviously travelling. And I said, "Well, I'm getting the slow ferry over to Egypt, and you know, I'll probably be there in about 10 hours. And she said, "Well, I'm getting the fast ferry, it takes 2 hours, I'll wait for you." So, you know, she disappeared off. So 5 hours later, my boat still hadn't come in. Another 10 hours later, I eventually get to Egypt, and it's like 16 hours after I've seen this girl in Aqaba. Go through all of the custom shenanigans in Egypt, and they let me ride out of the dock, and there's these white gates, and I can see it clear as day, white gates that they open for me with a little Coca-Cola stand, basically just a fridge, and she was sat on the wall with a can of ice cold Coke. And she said, "You're going to have to give me a baccy now, because I've missed my bus." So I moved on my luggage, and we rode 2 up to this campsite on the edge of the Red Sea. And it was just brilliant. And then, talk about missed opportunities, the next day we had something really nice to eat, really good conversation, and she said, "Oh, it'd be great, why don't you just stay for another 2 or 3 days and we can go lots of places on your bike?" And me being an idiot, I said, I've come here to get to Luxor, and I've got to meet a military convoy to get me across the Sinai. So what did I do? I rode off.
But you did have a military convoy.
I did have a military convoy.
So that's a really good excuse.
Yeah, I know, but come on.
No,
She was lovely.
Yeah, if you had your time again.
I can remember her name, Seema. I've got a photograph of her. And she gave me a phone number and said, "When you get back to Cairo, give me a call." So I got back to Cairo, gave her a call, and a friend answered the phone. He said, "No, she stayed in wherever it was. She met an Australian surf dude."
If you hadn't gone off your convoy,
Exactly.
There's a lesson for you.
Lost opportunities.
So we've got to.
Right, should we call it quits anyway?
Okay. Yeah. No. Yes.
That was great.
Yeah. It was really great.
Thanks, Katie.